Welcome to Bible Story Time, and thank you for joining us. Today we journey back to a city gripped by fear, to a king paralyzed by doubt, and to a promise that would echo through centuries. This is the story of Isaiah in the Sign of Immanuel. Our story is set in Jerusalem about 735 years before the birth of Christ. The prophet Isaiah was God's messenger to a nation on the brink. The king, Ahaz, was not a hero of faith. He was a man consumed by fear, and he had good reason to be afraid. Two powerful neighboring kingdoms, Israel and Syria, had formed an alliance. Their armies were marching toward Jerusalem, and their goal was simple: to overthrow King Ahaz and put their own puppet on the throne. The Bible says that the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. Panic was setting in. In this moment of crisis, King Ahaz had a plan. He would not turn to God. Instead, he would look for a political solution. He planned to send a desperate plea for help to the mighty, ruthless empire of Assyria. He would trade his kingdom's freedom and treasure for the protection of a brutal superpower. But God had a different plan. He sent the prophet Isaiah to meet the king at a crucial spot. By the aqueduct, the city's water supply, a place Ahaz was likely inspecting in preparation for a long siege. And God's message through Isaiah was direct: be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid. These two kings you fear are nothing more than two smoldering stubs of firewood. God promised that their plan would not succeed. He called Ahaz to stand firm in faith. But Ahaz was a politician, not a man of faith. He heard the words, but his heart was still set on his alliance with Assyria. So God made an astonishing offer. The Lord spoke again to Ahaz: ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. Imagine this. God was offering a blank check. Ask for anything, Ahaz. A miracle from heaven or a sign from the earth. Proof. Anything to convince you to trust me instead of the armies of men. And what was the king's reply? He tried to sound pious. I will not ask, he said. I will not put the Lord to the test. But this wasn't humility, it was a rejection. Ahaz had already made up his mind. He didn't want a sign from God because he didn't want to be bound by it. He wanted his own plan. Isaiah, hearing this faithless refusal, was filled with holy frustration. He wasn't just speaking to Ahaz anymore. He was speaking to the entire royal line, the house of David. Is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. And the sign wasn't an army from heaven or fire from the sky. It was something far more profound, far more personal. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Immanuel. And what does this name, Immanuel, mean? It means God with us. In that moment, the sign was for the terrified King Ahaz. The prophecy continued, saying that before this child was old enough to know right from wrong, the two kings Ahaz feared would be gone. It was a promise of immediate deliverance. God was telling a faithless king, whether you trust me or not, I am here. I am with you. But this prophecy was too big for just one king in one crisis. The promise of God with us planted a seed of hope that would grow for over 700 years. Generations would pass, kingdoms would rise and fall. But the promise of Immanuel remained. It pointed to a day when God's presence would not just be a promise of protection, but a person. A day when God would break into human history in the most vulnerable way imaginable, as a baby. Centuries later, the Gospel of Matthew would quote this very verse to explain the miraculous birth of another child to another young woman, a child named Jesus. He was the ultimate fulfillment of the prophecy. He was Immanuel. He was God with us. King Ahaz, in his fear, looked for salvation from a great and powerful empire. But God's answer to fear, then and now, is not found in the strength of armies or the wisdom of politicians. God's answer is Immanuel, his presence. This story teaches us that even when our faith is weak, like Ahaz's, God's promises hold true. Even when we are tempted to trust in our own strength or worldly solutions, God offers a better way. He offers himself. In the middle of our own fears, our own sieges of anxiety and uncertainty, the promise of Immanuel still stands. God has not left us to face our battles alone. The ultimate sign of his love is not a display of overwhelming power, but the quiet, constant, history-changing truth. He is with us. Thank you for watching Bible Storytime. If this story of an ancient promise inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These stories remind us that in our deepest fears, God's greatest promise is His presence.